and welcome to Outlaw Gamer Radio, the official podcast of OutlawGamers.com. This is the show where we live to play and play to live. I'm Brent Adams, joined by a man who has enough LSD in his spinal fluid to see holograms without special glasses, Mr. Lauren Baumgarten. Lauren!
Good evening, Brent Adams.
What's going on?
I'm listening to your intro and I could not figure. I'm like, what is in the show this week that talks about LSD or spinal columns? I could not figure out what you were talking about until you came back around, and I'm super excited to talk about what you're referring to.
Yeah, it was actually a subject of conversation around the table at my daughter's birthday party over the weekend.
You're kidding?
And no, I'm not kidding.
Was it filled with gamers or?
No, just a couple of friends of mine who are gamers, and
right.
You know, we were talking about it, but
well, I wasn't insinuating that Zeely's gamer friends came over for
give it time
for the party.
Give it time.
Oh yeah, I hope so.
All right, so we are back, everybody. It's episode 4. Yep. It's almost February, if you can believe it. Yeah. And the year is just humming right along, ye olde 2015. Let's kick off the garage this week. You know, in hindsight, all that prattle really did not amount to much of anything in the way of information or entertainment.
That's okay, because we got plenty of information and entertainment coming.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can make that claim. But first up in the garage this week, we got an announcement teaser from Reign of Reflections. This is the debut title from Lion Bite Games. Where are they? Swedish? I know they're over in Europe somewhere. Yeah, Swedish. Yep. Okay. So anyway, this is a cyberpunk noir role-playing game that is headed down the pipe, and the announcement teaser is, I would not describe it as necessarily all that exciting, but it's certainly interesting, and I think it's evocative and is more kind of about giving you a glimpse into what the story, might be about in very vague terms, and also kind of the feel, the kind of the tone of everything. But anyway, Lauren, we're linking to this first up in the garage section this week. Why does it deserve that spot? What was it that got you interested in this?
Well, I disagree with you. I actually think this is very exciting. It maybe isn't exciting in the context of it doesn't have a lot of action or battle sequences in the trailer.
Right.
But
okay, so we agree that it's not exciting. Keep going.
No, we don't. Other than that, what I think is a terrible title, Reign of Reflections, I think that I encourage people to go watch this video. It is, I think it's very exciting. I love the look of this game. It's gorgeous looking. I like a lot sci-fi noir, and there's not enough of it.
Yeah,
I mean, a la Blade Runner, a la, I guess, Remember Me kind of, but what was the Hard Rain? Another sci-fi noir that has rain in the title. Another terribly titled game. That wasn't that great of a game, but a beautiful game in that world of, and I loved of all the Halo games, ODST was probably my favorite, which had this sort of very noir feel to it.
And also, I think it might have had rain on the cover of the box.
That actually did, and the music by Martin Donovan is fantastic, and I listen to it all the time. Has rain in the music, but
somewhere it's monsoon season and flooding on people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, pile on, Brent and Lauren, pile on."
Right. There's not enough of this what's it called? Cyber something 2077. So
Cyberpunk 20 from
CD Projekt
Red. Yeah, buddy.
Yep. Cyberpunk 2077 is super exciting. I would like to see more sci-fi noir games, and this one, although it's a ways out, it's not until 2016, which is a little bit disappointing, but the game looks absolutely gorgeous and very, very interesting. And they talk about, if you go to their website, you can read up on the game a little bit more. They talk about it's single player only. It is not, they're very specifically trying not to put a bunch of filler in there. It will be what would be traditionally shorter for an RPG, which I'm assuming means, somewhere under 45 or 50 hours, like maybe it's 15 hours or 20 hours, which is perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's nothing wrong with that. And maybe I'm just being kind of selfish given the fact that I don't have 45 hours to invest in games too often these days, but the idea of having a really compelling RPG experience that only lasts maybe 20 hours, as an example,
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing that scares me off about that. And
not only does it not scare me off, but I think it's a really refreshing design pillar, frankly.
Right.
I'm getting sick of these games. I was just watching video of Dying Light, and I haven't seen much of Dying Light, so I'm not trying to make a commentary on how the quality of that game. But
no, that's the next section.
It felt it felt to me like a little bit like the Far Cries and the Assassin's Creeds where they're just padded out with and these obviously aren't true RPGs, but they're just padded out with these side missions all over the place, and I think it's refreshing to see this as a design pillar. They said they're saying out of the gate right now they're targeting a more reasonable price point. They're targeting $25 for the game. It's very story centric, single player only. All these things are, to me, are very refreshing and great design pillars, and on top of what looks like a gorgeous game. And I'm really excited to see where this game goes in 2016.
Something else that I think that you and I and many other people are going to be excited to see where it goes is the next item in the garage, and this was the reference at the top of the show we were talking about. Microsoft has announced an augmented reality holographic solution.
They're calling it mixed reality.
Mixed reality. I beg your pardon. They're calling it HoloLens. They've shown off a couple of different demos of this apparatus, which is it is a goggle-like apparatus that you wear on your head, much like VR, but you can see through it, and it, as the name might imply, it allows you to see holograms on top of the world around you. And, of course, you can imagine all of the different kinds of applications that could have, both entertainment and otherwise. Microsoft is promising that this will be available in the same time frame as the Windows 10 operating system, and that it will be priced for both consumers as well as other people. Anyway, I think that given all of the interest that you and I share in VR, it is interesting to take a step back and look at something that's certainly playing in the same ballpark, if not exactly the same league. I realized that as I was running down that baseball analogy was going to fall apart on me there at the end. Anyway, plotting ahead, Lauren, what's your opinion on HoloLens?
So, as you can imagine, Brent, I've done a lot of reading on this, and it grabbed my attention pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I have never been interested in AR specifically, honestly. But I have to say, this is, I've obviously been very into VR. I own the first dev kit on the Oculus Rift. I've said that I believe this is where the future is going.
Yep.
I after seeing what I've seen to this point, and not trying to put the cart before the horse, but I feel like I almost could say that I may be mistaken. And I thought that. With 100% certainty that VR was the direction we're going, but what I have seen, surprisingly, from Microsoft, has absolutely blown my mind and is incredibly compelling, far more compelling than I thought it would be, far more impressive technologically, and has blown the minds of tech writers throughout the industry. It is impressive. So if you haven't seen anything about the HoloLens, you should check it out. As Brent said, it is a headset akin to the Oculus Rift, although it is not. It looks a little bit more like ski goggles than Oculus Rift. Kind of looks like a tablet in front of ski goggles. This looks a little bit more like oversized glasses, like blue blockers back in the day. But the thing there's many things that are different, but one of the things physically that sets it apart from the Oculus Rift is that it is 100% untethered and self-contained. So from the edge of the glasses, running around the back of your head is about 1.5 inches long sort of bar, and that is the computer, which contains a discrete GPU, a CPU, and what they are calling an HPU, or a holographic processing unit. So it's got 3 separate processing chips that do things like read and render the world spatially. So not only is it augmented reality, Brent, in the context that it can project, say, a hologram on to existing, like onto your existing desk, but it's also capable of blocking out things that actually exist in the real world. And you see that in the Mars rover demo, which we'll get to in a second. But the whole thing is self-contained. It runs on Windows 10, and it's entirely self-contained. You don't have to plug it into anything. It doesn't need to be connected to a phone. It's impressive. It is an impressive looking piece of hardware. And as I said, all the tech writers who put it on were just absolutely blown away at how polished this was.
I think that the situation with VR versus AR, which Microsoft can call whatever they want, it's augmented reality. But the point is that,
well, it's not. But real quick, Brent, I agree with the whole idea of like just making up names and everything. But there is actually a difference between, at least as I see it, between augmented reality and mixed reality, because the augmented reality typically doesn't include being able to remove parts of the real world, and in doing so, you can actually have some aspects of what would be VR or make it entirely VR by removing the real world, whereas AR typically only lays things on top of what already exists. Does that make sense? I
don't think that that's a technological limitation that existing AR can't do. It's just that it's not really being done as commonplace practice.
Fair enough. Okay, so sorry, go ahead.
But my point is that, interestingly enough, I kind of see AR is probably more difficult to do. I think that it probably involves quite a bit more going on in the tech side, and I could be wrong about this, but I think that it probably involves a bit more technological kind of innovation going, or not, innovation is not the right word. It just involves, I think, a little bit more technology than VR.
Right, because you have to read and render the actual environment in real time.
Yeah, and obviously in VR you're just creating everything artificially, and so in that sense it's just kind of easier to manage things. But interestingly enough, I can't help but wonder if AR might not be, and this is what I was telling my friend Eric over the weekend. I can't help but wonder if AR might not be a stepping stone to VR, in the sense that it might be a technology that in a strange way might almost be a little bit more accessible for more people. I think about people can try this on, they see the world around them, and yet there's things added to it. There's an instant kind of wow factor to it, an instant kind of connection to to what this technology can offer. And I think for people who, and I'm not necessarily thinking about gamers, I'm thinking about just like mainstream consumers who may not especially be gamers, that might have absolutely no interest whatsoever in virtual reality, as an example, but see a demo of this or something in a Best Buy years down the road or whatever, try it on, look at the little tabletop setup display, play a game of I don't know, play a game of
Minecraft.
Yeah, Minecraft, or play play 3D chess, or whatever it is. And say, oh, I've got, this is awesome, I got to get one of these. And then that, kind of becomes a gateway that opens up people's, potential interest in VR, saying, well, this is pretty interesting. And what could you do in VR where you have full control over everything? You're not limited to, kind of, things that are being laid over the real world. Although I suppose you could argue that, with the kind of the mixed reality paradigm that you were just talking about, the ability to block out the real world, why couldn't you do both with a technology
with that machine, right? And that's
like this?
And that's where they demo the Mars rover thing, which they partnered with the Jet Propulsion Labs at NASA to do a demo for Mars rover, which is supposed to be it looks incredible, and everybody again said it's as incredible as it looks to us on the videos. And but Microsoft was very clever to mention this, but not fixate on the idea that they see this as the future of personal computing. I think, and I'm sort of want to agree with them. I mean, they see this as the death of the keyboard and the mouse.
We'll see.
Well, I mean, there's no question. There's no question the keyboard and the mouse is not the most elegant input solution.
But how many companies have demoed something and said, "Here's the future of the personal computer"?
Well, like I said, though,
that seems just a little.
They were
bit.
very smart to downplay that, but that's kind of what they're thinking is, and it's like so. One of the other demos, and I'm sure you saw this, Brent, where they actually had people in the demo installing a light switch. And they showed it in the context of like a piece of plumbing.
Yeah.
But where one person could actually, sort of circle something in your real world. And so to do this in their demos, they had people installing light switches with somebody, remotely walking them through it and drawing on the real world, saying attach this wire to this wire with a, big arrow or whatever.
Get colander,
and that's
cook fish. I agree. I totally agree. I mean, I think that I think that the implications and the possibilities for this are very exciting.
Oh, I thought there was a but coming there.
There is a but coming.
But
I would just remind everybody that this is Microsoft, and this is a piece of hardware that Microsoft is making, and I would just remind everybody to remain cautiously optimistic when it comes to Microsoft and their track record of making really big promises for far away product launches that and sometimes the feature set that you actually get 4 years down the road and what they promised at the big to do previously, not always the same thing. So I just would remind everybody to, just remember that as we get closer to this thing's theoretical launch. That's all.
Yeah, when is the Windows timeframe, Brent? Do you know?
I think that I want to say that they're planning to launch late this year, is what I want to say. So, if this thing comes out late this year,
this may not be a far off thing now.
It does everything that they say it will, and it doesn't and HoloLens does in fact launch this year. Then I'll be the first to admit that I'm wrong, and I'll be very happy to be wrong if that's the case.
Well, and certainly I wouldn't imagine the first one out of the box is going to be like a completely elegant and total solution, but it's significantly more compelling than I anticipated it would be. It's pretty impressive technology and super excited to see where it goes.
Yep. Which there's possibilities for it to go a lot of different places. This next one is just for you, Lauren, and tell us all about it.
I actually just saw this as we were sitting down to record. It seems that BioWare has made available the tavern songs from Dragon Age Inquisition for free to listeners, I guess, or to players. I mean, I guess a lot of players were asking how they could get a hold of the tavern songs, which I'm assuming are not on the soundtrack, which I haven't looked up the soundtrack, but it's beautiful. And I'm guessing that the tavern songs aren't on there, and people were asking about it. So they said, hey, you know what? You guys are so awesome as a community. We're going to give away all the tavern songs and all the sheet music for free until February 9th. So if you're interested, on their website, it's linked here, is all the tavern songs from Dragon Age Inquisition for free until February 9th, and then after that they'll make them available for whatever price they decide. But I just thought this was a really cool thing, Brent. Not only is the music
great fan service,
I downloaded it. I just thought it was just an awesome way to give a little thank you to their customers for playing the game, and I just thought it was great, man.
I agree, man. It's like you said, it's great fan service. No reason not to do it. Glad to see that they are doing it, and I'm sure for everybody who's playing Dragon Age and getting a taste of it, it sounds like this will go a long way towards endearing them to BioWare. So excellent work.
Yeah, it's nice to see some love for the customers every once in a while.
So next up in the garage, I don't think any of us would be surprised to learn that Gearbox is going to be working on a Borderlands 3 in somewhere down the road, but it's not probably coming anytime soon because we've just gotten word from Gearbox that they are just looking to start hiring, building up their team for Borderlands 3, and Randy Pitchford sent out a teaser image letting everybody know that if they're interested in getting on board, they can get in touch with him at heyrandy@gearbox.com. And they're looking to grow the team. I guess that it's no big surprise, but it's just kind of an interesting pitch. I think most of the time companies they start building up their staff and all that thing in secret. They'll Rockstar will start quietly hiring people for an undisclosed project. Whereas Gearbox, I think, basically has started the hype train for Borderlands 3 with this salvo.
Yeah, this. There's a couple of things that are interesting about this, and reasons I put on the docket. One of them is I'm curious to know if people care at this point. I have to say, as much as I absolutely love Borderlands 2, my response to this was sort of like, kind of. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of maybe a little oversaturation, even though I'm not playing them. Oversaturation with the pre-sequel and the Telltale Games version of the game, and so one of the reasons I put on here was I'm curious to know if people at this point care. But the other about this IP, but the other reason I put it on here was because as you alluded to, Brent, I found this very odd. Like, are we at the point now? Odd and somewhat self-indulgent, honestly. Are we at the point where we're announcing that we're ready to start working on games? I mean, but theoretically, depending on how much they rewrite the engine or don't, anywhere from 2 to 5 years away from this game coming out, if they actually decided to rewrite a new engine. And I just felt like it was odd that I don't believe I've seen a game do this, but I could be wrong. But I don't know. And it came off to me as like like we're so important that you want to know that we're hiring. I don't know. There's something about that felt a little odd to me. That
quality to it myself. I guess that I just kind of saw it as just kind of taking a playbook out of the way that big blockbuster movies are being done now. I mean, like the first big hype isn't the trailer; it's the casting. And this director's attached, and the script's being written by this guy over here that wrote this other great movie that you like. That's the thing. It's just like the advertising campaign for these things starts much earlier than it used to, and I guess that's kind of what I was thinking in looking at this story. I was kind of thinking that they're basically just kind of doing the same thing. They're just starting to hype the game, advertise the game, as it were, much sooner than people normally do. But for better or worse, that doesn't mean that this will be the last time we see this, or even, as you pointed out, that it's the first time. There could be another example of this that we're just not thinking of. But I don't know. I don't know whether this is smart or not, because I think that often people within the game industry, I don't know if it's a minority or not, but I do think that there's a group of people that are a little bit weary of the hurry up and get excited for this game that you can play in 3 years. That's I remember reading this article one time, and I can't remember the exact details, but the short version of it was that it was basically talking about movie trailers and like what the ideal window to kind of basically how long you can kind of hold people's excitement for something. And it was something along the lines of 13 months or something. Like, if you start advertising your movie too soon, you cross this threshold past which people are actually get sick of hearing it. And so, they can withstand so much saturation in such and such a period of time. And I can't help but wonder if the game industry might not be playing on the wrong side of that threshold sometimes.
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, I think in this case they are. It just seemed odd, and so I thought it was interesting. It stood out to me as something that was interesting.
Since we've got his email address, we should email him and tell him,
Hey, Randy.
This is odd. That could become like a new meme. It's just like hey, Randy, and then, messages to Randy Pitchford. It wouldn't even have to be anything necessarily related to Borderlands 3 or video game. It could be like, hey, Randy, did you know that there are 4 types of waterborne pathogens? Just stuff like that.
Hey, Randy, I just wanted to say, hey, Randy.
It's, hey, Randy, Ryan Gosling's looking for you. Not really. Anyway, last up in the garage this week, and perhaps most epically up in the garage this week, is a video that's been making the rounds pretty much everywhere. It's got, I think, over 6 million views on YouTube at this point. It was posted, I I think Roland posted it first to the Outlaw Gamer Society website. This is titled Elders Play Grand Theft Auto 5 on the React YouTube channel. And as the name implies, what you're going to see is a collection of senior citizens playing Grand Theft Auto 5. They've been given some instruction on how the controls work, but other than that, they're told nothing. They're just left to their own devices to do what they will. And some of the things they do, and especially a lot of the things they say, are comedic gold. Catherine, I was especially a big fan of, who early in the video she's walking through Mike's house, and Mike comes across his wife or whatever, and she's like boozing up in the kitchen or whatever. And Catherine's like, "Who's this? Is this his wife or maybe his girlfriend?" And the character says, "I've got to get whacked out on Xanax and wine, and then maybe I could get myself fucked up enough to want to sleep with you." And Catherine deadpans, "It's his wife." And oh my God, dude, I like to die. So I think it was her, but somebody later on, after they discover the weapon, she goes, "Ooh, I've got a gun. Now where's a person?" I'm like, of course. Oh my God, it was so funny. It was really, really funny, but it was also interesting to kind of see what their reaction to it was after they'd played it. Oh, I had a really great time shooting police and murdering citizens and all that, but no, people shouldn't play this game. I wouldn't want my grandkids to play this game. That kind of thing. And then other people were like, "Oh man, this is great. It's just a game. Nobody's really getting hurt. This is the best kind of violence. The fun imaginary kind." So anyway, it's a riot though. It's definitely worth checking out.
It was fantastic. It was absolutely. I was not. You know what? I did not. When I clicked on it, I was like, "Elders? What do they mean by elder?" I didn't. I wasn't
elders.
Sure. I had no idea that's what I was going to see. And it was it was awesome, Brent. It was awesome.
What I was thinking about just now as we were talking about this, there's a limited window of opportunity that you can make videos like this, because when our generation is elderly, you're not going to be able to have a sit down. It's like, I've never played video games before. You know what I mean? I guess there'll be something else. I don't know what it'll be. I don't like heroin you inject through your tear ducts or something. Whatever.
I've never injected heroin through my tear ducts
but
before.
That's my whole point. Maybe that's as commonplace as video game in 30 years, and then you and I are the ones on YouTube injecting heroin into our tear ducts, and and so kids can laugh at us as we try to acclimate.
Now all I can think about is heroin. I have to go.
That's how addictive it is. You just hear the name and you're like, "Ooh, I want some smack."
Ooh, I want some.
Start scratching the inside of your elbow.
All right, guys, we have moved out of the garage and headed into the clubhouse, and this is where we talk about the topics of the day. We've got a great topic this week, thanks to one of our listeners on the website. But before we get into that, Brent, why don't you tell us about the club poll from last week?
Yeah, so last week we were talking about, kind of the shenanigans with H1Z1 and the pay-to-win airdrop situation and all that, the stuff that's going on with the early access for that. And we asked the question, is Sony Online Entertainment's refund policy enough to satisfy you on the H1Z1 shenanigans? We gave you three options, and I tell you what, it was pretty evenly split. Last place, second place, as it turns out, with 30%, you answered no. They charged gamers for a free game and lied to them about pay to win. And first place was tied in a dead heat, 35% to 35% for the answers yes. The people who paid got the money back. Now we move on. And that was tied with the answer, it's a start, but the money is nothing next to them breaking their word. So the OGR listening audience almost evenly divided on this topic, or perhaps my poll questions were just really, really shitty and didn't leave all that much room for delineation. It could go either way. I can admit it.
It could. I mean,
So thank you, everybody, for chiming in on that, for sounding off on that, for relaying your thoughts, opinions, and experiences playing the H1Z1 early access. We really appreciate hearing about all that. We also appreciate this next listener who left us a message and kind of is going to lead us into today's topic.
That's right. That listener, Brent, would be Jaderman 1978
Or
Janderman 1978. I can't read my own writing. So
good luck when you get to the name of that game at the end of this paragraph.
Posted.
Off you go.
Posted a post on the website today, and I thought it was really interesting, and I thought it would be a good foundation for discussing sort of part of the state of the industry today. And the statement that Genderman wrote was, guys, one question. When did we, the gamers, turn into this negative, depressed, cynical, fearing everything we see state that we're in right now? I was talking to some of my customers lately and asked them which game they are planning to play in 2015. And overall, the answer was Title X if they don't fuck up this and that, or Title Y if they don't make us pay another $50 for additional content. It's a very depressing mood going on from gamers these days. I say you should see the beauty in the dissonance. I miss the 90s days where everyone was hyped about a new game or console release. That being said,
here comes
Danganronpa Danganronpa is friggin' great on the Vita. I'm a late adopter, but it's worth each minute I play it, in my opinion. So, Brent, what I thought we would talk about this week, and what I think is really interesting, is this idea of sort of where we've come as gamers, in terms of our attitudes towards gaming. And I think, the attitude that Janderman 1978 is alluding to here is very pervasive at this point, and I think is indicative of sort of the state of our industry in a not a good way at all. I put an article up here. I just pulled one article out that I noticed today. There's a lot of examples of why we're like this, and we'll talk about this. But there's an article I pulled out. I think this particular one happens to be from Forbes, but it's entitled "Dying Light Promises No Review Embargoes, Delivers No Review Copies." It's this idea that the Dying Light, which comes out at the time of this recording tomorrow, Tuesday, we record on Monday. They said months ago that there would be no review embargoes. They would be completely transparent. This is the upcoming zombie game from Techland and Warner Brothers, so what they have done is they didn't send out review copies until today, Monday, and so nobody can get any kind of decent. We'll have any real review up on the day of release tomorrow. In addition, they made several deals with multiple YouTubers where they're paying the YouTubers to do Let's Plays and not review the game, essentially, where they can't really give a negative opinion of the game. And so
because part of the agreement for them getting the ability to publish the footage is they got to agree to certain conditions, like you won't criticize the game, as an example.
Right. And so they've done this coupled with the fact that they didn't send out review copies. And this is one of the things, Brent, along with this sort of climate of DLC and this feeling that game developers are more interested in trying to figure out how to manipulate us into buying things and actually create high quality interactive entertainment experiences. This idea, this feeling, I think that I think is very. It's there for a reason that games are a vehicle for, as I said, for manipulating money out of your pocket and not for creating necessarily compelling interactive entertainment experiences. And even ones that do seek to create compelling interactive entertainment experiences are now seeming to build in this sort of money-making model that's on top of it and sullies it. And so this, along with pre-orders and the idea that you can't possibly get all the content necessarily, and day one DLC on the disc and locked DLC on the disc, and things like lack of review copies, that sort of thing. All of these things, I think, Brent, play into this image that Janderman has painted of the modern gamer. And so I don't know. I thought we would discuss a little bit. I don't know. What do you think? Do you feel like this is a common conversation?
I do. Yeah. And it's one I've had with, my friends, outside the context of, discussing, the show or the website or anything like that. I think it's something that regular gamers all over the world are talking about, and rightfully so. As to Janderman's question, his one question, when did we, the gamers, turn into this negative state we're in right now? It happened when consoles became internet-connected devices. The second that companies had the ability to not release a game that was technically sound on disc, because they could patch bugs after the fact, the second they had the ability to sell us more content after the game had released, that's where all these things came from. And I take issue, although not that much, because I don't know that this was really what he was intending with his question. But I take issue with his description of describing people who feel this way as negative. I think people who feel this way are honest, and I think that they deserve to feel this way in light of what's going on. I think that if you feel this way, it's not a sign of anything being negative or wrong with you. It's a sign of you being aware of the practices of the industry that you love and the hobby that you love. And I think that what's going on, and the reason I don't consider myself negative about it, what's going on right now is growing pains, in my opinion. I think that what we're seeing is a bunch of people trying a bunch of different stuff because this new technology, which has only been available since the beginning of the last console generation, which we're just kind of now waning through. This has only been available for a few years now, and so people are experimenting. They're trying different things, and certainly there are people within the industry, publishers and other companies that are using these practices in a way that is not all that consumer friendly. But there are plenty of other companies that are going out of their way to be consumer friendly and to not do some of these things and all that. And I think that with the amount of negativity that I perceive to be growing all the time concerning this stuff, I think that it is something that will eventually reach an equilibrium. But it's just right now, it's just kind of the frenzy of the new and people kind of figuring out where the boundaries are for this new capability that we've had since, I don't know, 2006 or so, whatever. But anyway, that's kind of my feeling on it. I think this stuff's less than a decade old. We've already seen it happen, grow into popularity, and we're already kind of getting sick of some of the ways it's being exploited. And I think that in time things will cool down a little bit, because eventually people are just not going to make it worth their while to engage in these kinds of practices. That's my take, anyhow.
So you think that this is going to cool down?
I think so. Yeah, I think that consumer demand will put sufficient pressure on companies in time that I'm not saying that it will never happen. I'm just saying that I don't think that it will be as prevalent as we see it being right now.
So what do you think? I'm curious, Brent.
Yeah.
What do you think when you say you think it will calm down? What is it specifically that you think will calm down in terms of, like, you think there will be less DLC type stuff? You think there will be pre-orders will go away? You think?
I don't.
What specifically? What practices consumer reverse practices do you think will wane or disappear?
I think that as an example, I think that you'll see the quality of paid DLC change. I think that that we can all point to examples of paid DLC that nobody sees much value in. I don't think that paid DLC will necessarily go away, but I think that what you'll see is that I think you'll see that companies will really have to actually deliver something. I think that the practice of, as an example, locking content on disc behind a pay gate. We're already seeing that happen less and less and less. There's high profile examples every now and then, but really that's something that already has kind of come and gone to a degree. Season passes are a good example of a practice that people said, hey, or not season passes, excuse me, the online pass, the online pass is what I meant.
Right.
Like online passes were, something that, that people, tried to make happen, and it just kind of fizzled out. I think that things like DLC are going to be around because, people buy DLC. And in, cases, particularly things like, Call of Duty, Battlefield, where you're buying extra maps and stuff, I think people get enough value out of those that they enjoy it. But I think that's the thing, that it's going to get a lot more selective what, people actually, drop money for. as it goes along. I think that actually a lot of those things that you can point to in the way of DLC and stuff like that, I think a lot of it's probably actually has improved somewhat, compared to, things like the online passes and stuff that, we were seeing, just a few years ago. A lot of those things have already fallen by the wayside. But specific to this Dying Light article, I was, and of course we were talking about this recently also, but specific to the Dying Light thing, I think that the whole notion of transparency, which is interesting given the fact that, that Techland had kind of committed to transparency, and then it turns out they're really not all that transparent, which there's a lot of that going around these days. I can't speak for other countries, but anyway, my point is that, I think that, what's the solution to this? Like, how do you combat this practice of them, of them either embargoing reviews or not sending out reviews so that people can't get a honest, accurate appraisal of the game from the outlet of their choice on day one or prior to day one, so they can make a purchasing decision? How do you combat that? It's just like our listeners said back in the Axe Factor days. Just don't buy the game on day one. Get the day 6 edition of the game. Wait a week. Find out, from real people who are playing the game, what it's actually like, what's actually broken, what needs to be fixed, whether or not it's worth your money or not. Just don't buy it day one. Don't pre-order it. A little bit of patience will really effectively combat all of these things, because I think in this specific case, the whole strategy here is to just try to keep people ignorant so that they can get as many sales as they can on day one. And then I think they figure that sales are going to drop off pretty rapidly, so they're just going to get what they can those first 24 hours or so, and you can take that away from them if you just wait.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly, there was another post on Outlaw Gamer Society. I don't know if you saw it or Brent, but it was sort of a call to arms to reaffirm a reaffirming call to arms about not buying games, not pre-ordering games, not buying them until reviews are up and you've had a chance to read them and that sort of thing. And I thought that was
I have to say,
sort of a great reminder for everybody.
I agree with that. I think that's really smart.
Yep, and a couple of our users have made that commitment to themselves, and I would like to make that same commitment. That idea of not doing it, of not buying, not pre-ordering games. I think that's how we speak. What's that?
And not getting games on day one. Just because that's the whole. I mean, I think all these practices are kind of built around the idea that you get people's excitement built to a fever pitch, and then they run out and buy the game the first chance they get before they've actually found out whether or not the game is what it's purported to be.
Yep. We've been doing this show for over 4 years now, Brent.
Has it been that long? Jesus.
I know, right? And we've been talking about these business practices, I would say probably since day one.
Off and on, yeah. It's been a constant thread.
And so it's not something new. I mean, this has been something that's building. I'll be curious to see if this is in fact something that gets better over time, or if how long these growing pains last. I really, heading into this conversation, wasn't thinking of this as a topic of growing pains, but more of a trend of a motion that is headed in one direction and is going to continue going in that direction. I mean, it would be curious to check in with this a year from now and see where it's at. But it is unfortunate, one way or the other. I feel it's unfortunate that this is the kind of. I think it's a common attitude among gamers, and it saddens me because to me it stunts the growth of our incredible industry. And of course, the industry is growing financially, but it stunts it stunts the creative and social growth of our industry, and it's unfortunate. I think
I agree it is, and I think that I think it's one of those things that the people who are responsible for this have to really they have to think about the long-term game of this, because if they do in fact alienate people with these practices enough, they hurt their ability to grow in the long term. If people get so fed up with this, so sick and tired of it, that they become unexcited about gaming as an industry, then they could very well stop supporting gaming as an industry with their money. Maybe not altogether, maybe just buying games less often, more selectively, so forth. So, the industry will only be hurting itself if they don't listen to their customers. And there's actually a point that Paul Tassi makes in this Forbes article that really echoes a sentiment I've thought many, many times. I just want to quote him here. He says, quote, "If you're confident in the creation, I'm not clear why you would completely avoid judgment." And that's how I feel about it too. I feel like what we as consumers can do, as we kind of outlined, is not pre-order, not buy on day one. What the industry can do to avoid this is not try to get away with shit, not try to pull the wool over our eyes. Make a really good game. Don't try to trick us into thinking that you've made a really good game by not allowing reviews, by manipulating YouTube footage and that kind of stuff. You can avoid all that by just putting the effort into the development. You don't have to put the effort into the manipulation. Just put the effort into the game development and make sure that you're creating a solid product. Why don't you just do that? And then everything will work out for all of us.
Obviously the sort of implication of this behavior is obviously like this is not a high quality product, and it's hard for us to say at this point because we haven't actually seen this game. But certainly that's the implication when you talk about that practice in particular, is that they're hiding something, right?
It doesn't. I mean, it's certainly not behavior that speaks of we're exceptionally confident in our game, and no, you can't see it. It's those two things seem at odds to me.
Indeed. Well, I'd be curious to hear what the listeners have to say about this. I want to know, if this is the experience that you guys are having. When you talk to your friends that are gamers, when you think about games, do you think about them in the context of like, oh, I'm excited for this. I hope they don't screw us in this way or that, or I hope this doesn't happen. And I started to think about that after I read this, and I thought, this is how I think about things in general. Like, I'm not, the game I'm probably... The company I probably have the most faith in, the game I'm probably the most excited about because of that, is Uncharted 4. Naughty Dog is, like Batman. I was super excited about Batman, and now I feel like
it's kind of cooled.
They're heading. Yeah, it has cooled, and this the only game right now that I'm super super jazzed for is Uncharted 4. But I'll be honest in that I still have this sense of like, I hope they don't fuck it up between now and then.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we are negative.
So I want to hear from you guys, or we want to hear from you guys as to what you think on this subject. Is this what you encounter when you talk to your friends or gamers? Is this how you think when you think about games? Is this something that, as Brent implied, or not implied, outright stated, that is just growing pains and is going to get better? Or do you feel like this is something that is just going to keep getting worse and worse? We'll put up a poll, of course, about this topic, but also let us know all your thoughts in the comments section. But also let us know all your thoughts in the comments section as usual.
Welcome back, everybody. We are on the road, and we're going to be talking about the games we've been playing this week. I am excited to announce that I have played something in addition to Star Wars Commander, and I'm going to talk about that and not talk about Star Wars Commander this week for the first time in God knows how long.
It won't be, thank God, it won't be Star Wars Commander 2, will it?
No, it won't, but give it time. First up, though, I'm going to throw to you, Lauren, for some more Dragon Age Inquisition.
Of course, I played a little bit more. Again, not as much as I had hoped for.
I heard
only
they're
a little
giving away
bit more
some tavern songs for this game, huh?
They are, which are fantastic. You should go check them out. Now I'm going to go look at buying the soundtrack. So I did play a little bit more, not a ton. I have nothing else to add to this conversation except that I'm still playing it. I'm still absolutely loving this game, and I can't wait to continue to play it.
Fair enough.
Yep. That's all I got. So what do you have? You have a game that I have not seen before. Deep Dungeons of only one deep, by the way.
That's right.
Deep Dungeons of Doom.
Triple D, son. This was a game.
What is this? What is this game?
It was recommended to me by a listener, Christopher Fachui, and he told me, hey, you should check this out. I think at first he got me on Twitter and said, hey, you should check this game out on iOS. It turns out it's also on Steam, And I guess he had a spare Steam key for it. Anyway, he sent it to me and said, "Hey, if you're interested, check this out." And I'm like, "Yeah." I looked at it on iOS, but it was like, I don't know, like $5, $4 or $5, something like that. And I was like, "Well, I'll add it to my wish list. Maybe we'll see if it goes on sale." Because it's just a little bit pricier than I was prepared to just drop on a game that I really didn't know anything about at the time. And anyway, so he gave me a Steam key, and I checked it out, and it's actually it's actually kind of a really neat game. And I'm actually thinking about getting it on iOS now that I've played it. And bear in mind, I just played it, for maybe 10 or 15 minutes or something like that. But now that I kind of get like what the game is, I do actually think it'd be a really good fit on iOS because the gameplay I think is suited for kind of just pick up and play when you have a few spare moments, sort of mentality. But essentially, it is it's kind of an 8-bit retro style kind of RPG, and I say RPG, but the way that it works is you're essentially you're essentially kind of taking some of the exploration aspects out of the RPG, and you're just kind of focusing on the fighting, and it's turn-based combat, and you've got statistics, you've got strength, defense, agility, magic. You've got these 4 abilities that you can increase your stats in order to kind of customize your character to suit your play style. Enemies will have certain attributes that you have to account for, certain things that they'll be strong in, certain things that they're weak on. They'll have weak points in their attack, where you have to kind of hold back and defend until one of the early bosses is like this kind of big blob, and if you just attack him outright, you don't really do any damage. You have to wait for him to like open this big eyeball, and that's his vulnerable spot. Then you attack. So all of that is, kind of, gaming 101 boss mechanic type stuff, but it's put together in this package that is pretty fun. And like the way that the dungeons work, just imagine within your mind that, it's just kind of, this giant elevator or something. You're on one level, you fight an enemy. Okay, that enemy's dead. You can collect some loot, collect some coins. Okay, now you go down a level. Okay, now there's another, you're just like swiping down. Now there's another enemy. Okay, you take him out, swipe down a level. So, you're kind of, as the name would imply, you're diving deeper and deeper into this dungeon until you reach the boss or whatever. So it's it's just kind of taking the paradigm of classic RPGs and kind of simplifying it, distilling it down to a form that is more compatible with on-the-go gaming, as opposed to actually sitting there and having to travel from town to town, fighting enemies along the way and that kind of thing. It's more focused on the combat and leveling up aspects of that genre.
So how are you leveling? How are you leveling up? Are you leveling up through? You said there's no exploration, so is it through combat, or are you actually?
That's correct. Yes. So like you defeat enemies, you get you get like experience points. You'll pick up loot. You'll pick up coinage, and that kind of thing. So it's all based on the combat that you're engaged in.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds interesting.
Yeah, it is. I think, as I was saying, I think that it's an especially, I think, well-suited game for handheld. I don't know if it's on iOS. I need to go look that up. But anyway, Deep Dungeons of Doom, playing around a little bit with it. Might end up playing a little bit more in the coming weeks. We'll see.
Excellent, man. I look forward to hearing more about it.
Actually, Lauren, I just went and Googled it, and it is on Android as well. So anyway, just for those of you who are not of the iOS persuasion, this is available to you also. Anyway, sorry, that's it.
Of the iOS persuasion. Is that the politically correct way to say it now, Brian?
To say that you're an iOS user? Okay.
I know what you're trying to say. You're taking a dig at me. I get it.
Whatever.
It's cool.
It's all good.
No, that sounds interesting, man. As I said, I look forward to hearing more about it. But I know that you are interested in hearing my reaction to the next game.
Am I?
I'm assuming.
I have been waiting. How long has the PlayStation 4 been out? That's how long I've been waiting to see this game show up in the dock where I didn't put it there.
Yeah, this game was initially, it was free, wasn't it? The first, when the PS4 was released. And free it should be, let me tell you. I'm totally kidding. So we're talking about Resogun.
Oh my God, are we?
It went on sale this weekend on the indie sale for $3. It was a total no-brainer. And I picked it up. Brent sent me a little note, and I thank you for that.
Oh, well, and I have to in turn thank Esteban, who sent me a message and reminded me and said I should pass the word to you. So we have to mention him as well.
Oh, good man. Thank you, Esteban. So I finally got Resogun, Brent, and I fired it up, and what's to say about the game that you don't already know? It's a tremendous game. It's a lot of fun. The only issue I have with this game, the two issues I have with this game.
Okay.
One of them is it's too addictive.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's too good. And the other is, and tell me if I'm wrong, Brent, I don't know. Have you played it recently?
Yes, I have.
You have? Okay, so what level do you play it on?
I usually play it on normal.
So you play it on. There's 4 levels.
Yeah, so the second one, like not beginner. I think there's
right, experienced. I think is what it's called.
Okay, yeah. So I think there's beginner, experienced, and then like expert,
veteran, and then master.
Yeah, something like that. I think I usually play it like on whatever the second level from the bottom is. Normal,
right, experience. So I started playing
whatever.
this game. I am not experienced at these types of games. I don't play a lot of twin stick shooters. Mm-hmm. So I started out on beginner, which was totally appropriate.
I started out there too. It's fine.
Yep, and I played beginner for probably I don't know, maybe an hour or something like that. And I got good at it. And I had to be honest with you, I had to go look up some stuff on the internet because I wasn't totally understanding the mechanic of how to know when the humans were going to come out.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the keepers and all that. So I had to look it up. And once I did that, it broke the game open for me. And I totally understood. There's only like 5 mechanics in the entire game. So I played on beginner for a while, and I was crushing it. I mean, I was doing really, really well, and I thought, okay, I should step this up. And so my one other complaint would be, I felt like when I stepped up to experience, that it was a bigger jump than it should have been. I have barely been able to get through the first couple levels of the first world or whatever. Yeah. And I can't get past that. I absolutely cannot get past that. And that's fine. I'm up to the challenge. I love this game. It just felt like a bit of a steep jump, to be honest. That would be my only, at this point, complaint about the game. The only other complaint being is that I want more also. I mean, I can't really exactly tell the mechanics of... I've been playing almost exclusively in arcade mode.
Yeah, me too.
And I can't exactly tell the mechanics. I can't tell how many worlds there are, each of which has 3 levels. So what I was wondering is there some... I don't feel like there's been a lot of visual differences. I feel like I want to go to the next world and everything's in red or something. You know what I mean? Just has a really distinctly different aesthetic, and I don't see that happening yet. But that's only because I don't see it. But I put $15 is a no-brainer for this game. $3, you're an asshole if you don't just pay them, even if you never play it. 50. I mean, I've played 3 hours of it, and I've every time I've sat down to play, I picked up Resogun. And the other thing that's awesome about it is it's so easy to jump in and out of.
Yeah. I mean, can you think of a more pure expression of kind of classic arcade game philosophy and mechanics, in anything in recent years? I mean, this game could so easily be like a coin-op arcade title. It just, it feels so at home in that kind of great pantheon of arcade shooters and everything. It just
like the Defenders and the Zaxxons of the world. You know what I like better about this game though is
simultaneously nostalgic and
new.
And totally,
yes. And
totally
and I agree with you 100%. And what I love about it, what I most love about it, it's aesthetically beautiful, but they've taken this genre and by making it circular, which by making it circular instead of like a progressive line, it feels like it just updates that genre so beautifully, and it plays plays so it's so perfect. I can't believe nobody ever did that back in the day.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing they did in a sense. I mean, I'm thinking of Fantasy Zone for the Sega Master System. Fantasy Zone.
I was thinking in the arcade
basically, though. Well, but my point though is that there were lots of 2D side-scrolling shooters that did loop. Like you could fly horizontally through the level and come back to the point where you started, right? It was essentially a circle. It's just that it was never rendered that way graphically within the game, whether that was because nobody thought to do it or because it was technologically unfeasible, I don't know. but that's the thing, is that it is exactly like those games are, but they kind of are taking it apart and saying, well, why is it that way? Oh, well, because it's a circle, and so that's how we'll construct the levels. We'll construct the level as, this giant column that you're flying around. I absolutely love the game. The game mechanics are few. They are relatively simple in concept, but difficult to master, which I love.
There's no question about it.
They love the finesse that's required to really dominate.
Yeah, one of the places I've been getting screwed up, Brent, is that when I was on beginner, I could just just ignore the bombs altogether. I didn't even use them. I just saved them and it took me a while to get over that and realize, like, I'm going to have to use the bombs to get through these levels. You can't do it without it. And
you really have to use all the mechanics available to you, especially as you get up into the
it is. I mean, it has such a beautiful combination of that, like, simple to play, difficult to master, as well as that sort of Bungie loop of like 30 seconds of action kind of thing, and it does such a great job of that. 30 seconds of action over and over and over again. It does such a great job of that, and it's like, it reminds me a bit of Super Meat Boy in the context of. Although 100 times more beautiful, but Super Meat Boy was one of the most pure and well-balanced gameplay experiences I've ever had. Just pure gameplay, and that's what the game is.
Yeah.
This game is, its genre is the same thing. It's just absolutely brilliantly designed, pure gameplay.
Yeah, the last time I played a shooter, and it's not exactly the same kind of shooter. The last time I played a shooter like this that really reminded me why I love this genre. It was like Einhander on the PlayStation, which Tony got me into. He had an import of it, but Einhander was that same kind of thing. It was just like this. My God, like this game is amazing. This genre is so cool, and you don't necessarily see a lot of them these days. But there are some really shining examples of what can be done in this genre on modern hardware, and it's pretty.
It's really fantastic. You know what I was just thinking, Brent? I don't know why this popped into my head, but this is a game that would lend itself really, really well to something like the HoloLens. Like, did you think about how, like game experiences? No, and I'm being serious. I think you think about gaming experiences that like would work. And
well, think about it as like a tabletop. Like
I'm just imagining it floating in front of you.
Rendering this game. Yeah, as if it were sitting in front of you on a table, something like that. Like, imagine like a multiplayer version of this game you're playing with friends, as if it were some kind of, wickedly advanced animated board game or something like that. I mean, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's I think about games like Call of Duty or Far Cry don't feel like they would make sense in something like the HoloLens. Minecraft, the way they showed it, looked really compelling. And something like this, I think, I was envisioning it like floating in front of my face, in a floating circle, like that whole floating circle of that game just being in front of my face. And it makes... Yeah. It makes perfect sense. It's
in front of your.
It's a brilliant game, Brent, and I thank you for pointing it out to me and Esteban. And I imagine we will be talking about it more, in the road section moving forward. It's a great game. I highly recommend it. All right. So next up, you have The Wolf Among Us.
My God, Lauren, do I have The Wolf Among Us? Have you finished The Wolf Among Us? Or are you done with the first?
Oh, dude! Not only have I not finished it, but I actually downloaded it on my Android phone. When I was looking for games for traveling, and it was awesome on the Android phone. But no, I haven't. I played episode 1.
Well, that was me. Like I played episode 1 I'd started episode 2. I'd played some of episode 2, and then I can't remember what pulled me away. But I never finished episode 2, and consequently, I never finished the episodes as they came out. I think all 5 are out at this point. And anyway. It's just one of those things. Like I really have been meaning to get back to it because I remember loving it so much, but just hadn't made time or whatever. So anyway, this week I finally decided to go back, and I ended up just restarting episode 2 because I didn't really remember all that much of it. And so I got back into episode 2, and man, I tell you what, it was just. I mean, I just sat there engrossed for whatever the 2-3 hours. However long it was that it took me to get through it, it just had me. I mean, the game, the story, the characters, the setting, everything just worked beautifully in this this kind of rendition of what is rapidly becoming Telltale's kind of signature game style. But the thing about episode 2 of The Walking Dead, you got a little bit of this in episode 1, but the thing about episode 2 that I really liked was the kind of detective work. And, this is something you and I have talked about through LA Noire, and how I think both of us find that there are great possibilities for this in games that not a lot of games have really ventured into all that much. But I love in episode 2, and I'll try not to spoil anything for anybody who's not played it yet.
Yeah, please.
But there's a scene towards the end of the chapter where Bigby is doing some actual detective work, kind of in a crime scene environment. And so, you're going along, you're looking at things, and you've got a character who's with you that's kind of, saying, what do you think the significance of that is? And so your kind of detective work is the multiple choice answer that you can provide. Are you the player putting the pieces together? You got a 1 in 4 chance of just guessing and getting it right. But it's really down to, are you seeing what's in this environment, and are you putting the pieces together? Are you seeing why these things kind of fit together, why they might all be here, and what it might point to? And I found it so rewarding. It was the thing that I loved conceptually about LA Noire, and that I actually felt like it fell short in some cases because it held your hand too much. To me, this felt just right. It had just the right amount of, it's a game and you're not actually solving a murder and, hitting a brick wall because you don't have years of experience or training as a fucking detective. It's a video game, so, they're presenting it to you in a way that jives with gameplay, and yet it feels as though you are making the leaps yourself, even though I know that, the game design is kind of leading you to it. But it feels as though you're making those leaps yourself, and that you're actually accomplishing something akin to detective work and deduction and so forth. So rewarding, really, really well done.
I think I may have played the second episode, because I think I wrote that's ringing true for me.
So anyway, it's just made me all the more determined to get back into it. I'm going to hold off, as opposed to just splurging and playing through the entire series. I've committed myself to playing. I'll play it like one episode over the next few weeks. Like, I'll play one episode a week. I'll limit myself to that, so I can kind of have some time to digest it, to give myself a little bit of time away for it, and then come back to it, recreating some semblance of the notion of an episodic TV show or something that you have to wait an episode between, or a week between episodes, something like that. It's just a game I'm kind of playing with myself. We won't talk about
really. Did you just say that?
We won't talk about the other games I play with myself. But anyway, I love The Wolf Among Us. I absolutely love this game. I can't wait to finish it and talk about it in more detail with you. Hopefully, this will inspire you to pick it back up and finish it out also.
I know it's a fantastic game, and I know it's a fantastic game.
Well, that's good. I'm glad we both know that. What's your point?
And I haven't played it.
Yeah, no, get to it, buddy. Get to it. So,
all right.
What's going to finish us out this week?
Rounding us out this week, Brent, is Infamous First Light. I picked it up again and put another couple hours into it, and I have to say I'm really, really enjoying it. And I almost want to say more than the original, which I've heard people say. Neon wasn't necessarily my favorite power in the original game, which is what Fetch's primary power is. Mm-hmm. But I'm really enjoying the mechanics in this game. I spent about 45 minutes last night, so you can go through and do these sort of side activities like spray painting, but more compelling ones now, like chasing these balls of light, and you earn experience points basically. You can upgrade doing that. And I spent like 45 minutes or an hour just doing that last night, and was able to upgrade probably 70% of my character, which I think is going to end up being just perfect. Because, and to some that might sound too easy, but if I get 5 hours out of this, I would be happy, and it would be perfect for me. I'm not looking for a 10-hour experience out of it, and so it feels like sort of a bite-sized portion of the original Infamous and original Infamous Second Son, I mean. And I'm really enjoying it, man. I'm liking the characters. I'm liking the way the story is progressing. The side missions are a bit more compelling than they were previously, at least up to this point. And it's nice to be back in the world. The game looks amazingly good and stands up to any game that's come out on the PS4 since. It looks fantastic, and it's really nice to be back in the world, and it's not overwhelming because I feel like, again, it's going to be, a 5, 6, 7 hour experience. I have no idea how long it is, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I intend to keep playing it and play it through, hopefully, and we'll talk about it more next week. But again, it's you have this week. I think it's the free game on PS Plus. So if you have PS Plus, there's absolutely no reason not to download this and try it out. I highly, highly recommend it.
Excellent.
Yep. And that's it, Brett. That's as if that's not enough. We had several games this week and a lot to talk about in the top of the show. Wow. So as usual, we're going to now turn this over to the listening audience, our badass outlaws, to comment on everything we talked about this week, including Infamous First Light, The Wolf Among Us, Resogun, Deep Dungeons of Doom, and Dragon Age Inquisition. Those are the games we talked about while out on the road. In the clubhouse, we talked about this week Janderman 1978's post regarding the state of gamers themselves and a sort of misanthropic attitude that may pervade game players at large. And so we're curious what you guys have to say about that. And of course, where we started out in the garage, Elders playing Grand Theft Auto 5. I can't say that without laughing. Gearbox ramping up for Borderlands 3. The giveaway of the Tavern songs in Dragon Age Inquisition, which I gave a quick listen to and are absolutely beautiful. I highly recommend it. The announcement of the HoloLens, and of course, the first game we talked about, the sci-fi noir game from Lion Byte, their debut title, Reign of Reflections. We want to hear what you guys think about all of those subjects or anything else going on in the world of gaming. We love your participation, your comments, so please, as usual, hit us up in the comment section below. He is Brent Adams, as usual. I am Lauren Baumgarten. And remember, guys, you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing.